Welcome to the District Court Show. This is a production of the 10th Judicial District. I'm Judge Steve Halsey from Wright County District Court, chambered in Buffalo, and my co-host is Elizabeth Strand, also judge chambered in Buffalo. We're going to be talking about truancy and what the laws are in the process when children are managing not to get to school. So Beth is going to introduce our two guests.
I'm pleased to welcome Michelle Thompson. Michelle presently is employed as an Anoka County Attorney at the Anoka County Attorney's Office. She's been there, gosh, you were there in 2007. You left and went to the Tubman Center for a while. And then you went back to the Anoka County Attorney's Office in 2014. Michelle presently prosecutes juvenile delinquencies and works with child protection cases. Welcome.
Thank you.
Kari Willis comes to us from Wright County. We see her frequently in the courtrooms there. She's a former law clerk for the Honorable Kim Johnson, and upon his retirement, she went to work as an assistant Wright County attorney, and she is presently assigned to child protection and truancy cases as well. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're talking about truancy today, and could you, Michelle, I'll start with you. Could you define what is the legal definition of truancy?
Sure. Well, the legal definition of truancy is found in the Child Protection Statute, Minnesota, and it deals with students who are 12 years age and older who are missing school. And in the state of Minnesota, truancy is when a student who is 12 years of age or older has missed all or part of a day of school, 7 or more in one school year. So it can be an all-day absence, or it could just be skipping one class, and those count just the same towards those 7 days. And then they're considered habitually truant under that statute.
And when you say missed, is it with unexcused absences?
Yes, thank you for that clarification. So those are unexcused absences. So absences that are excused by the school would not count towards those 7 days.
And Kari, what happens to kids who are under the age of 12 who are not going to school?
If you're under the age of 12 and you're not going to school, rather than a truancy case, the law presumes that that would be an educational neglect case, and the law looks more closely at the parents for their responsibility and why that child is not getting to school. Once you're over 12, it's more of the student's responsibility. Under 12, the law looks more to the parents.
So the parents get a letter in the mail, and someone who I will not name, who is very familiar to both of us, went on a family vacation with the children, which was probably very educational, and arrived at home and found out there was a letter waiting for them that the child had missed 6 days of school, and they were concerned. I don't think there was any requirement to contact the school or anything like that. So apparently that's a common practice.
Yes, the schools send out letters, and it kind of varies between school and school. I've actually gotten a truancy letter for my child when he was in kindergarten. But the schools send out letters, and at certain points then the county attorney's office becomes involved, and the human services can become involved too once they're notified by the schools. So.
Okay.
But what is excused and what's unexcused? What will the school say is something that's a valid reason?
Sure. Well, typically the schools are able to set that policy. So you look to the school policy to see what's an excused absence and what's an unexcused absence. Generally, things we would always consider excused: doctor's notes excusing a student from school, maybe a funeral of an immediate family member, other family emergencies like that are going to be excused absences. The vacation could have been if families get those approved from the schools ahead of time. So sometimes we see that situation. And typically what I see, and I'm not sure it's the same for you, is schools are willing to work with families on absences and not always requiring doctor's notes at first. However, if the absences continue to happen, they're going to require a doctor's note for an absence rather than just calling the student in sick.
Okay. And as far as other excuses, I'm substantially older than the three of you, but I can remember back in the 60s when I was in middle school and high school, is that it was extremely common that particularly boys would go hunting with dad for a week in the fall, or I lived in the suburbs, but still there were kids that lived on farms. They were gone for 2 weeks, during harvest or whatever it may be. And my wife's been a teacher for over 40 years, and my understanding is that has really changed. There's not much leeway as there was back in those days for kids leaving school for a week or two to be in some type of family business or on the farm or whatever it might be.
Kari, didn't you mention, though, the other day that in Wisconsin, the hunting is a valid reason sometimes?
It did seem that way in the high school that I went to. Over half the school would be gone during hunting season, and I think now maybe they don't even have school during that week because it's not productive, but not a legal excuse to be gone from school in Minnesota. The only other thing I would add to the legal reasons to be gone from school is religious holidays. So if you have a religious holiday that's conflicting with the school calendar, the school will not mark you unexcused absent for those days. They'd excuse those days.
What do schools do with children who have long-term illnesses or have extreme family circumstances that prevent them from going to the school?
I think, as she already mentioned, the schools really try to work with the students, and one thing we hear from schools over and over again is they really want the students in school, and they're willing to do whatever they can do to help provide that education. So if there's an extreme illness and that student can't attend school for immune deficiency reasons or something like that, a lot of mental health comes into why students can't attend school. The schools will really work with that family and help that family to try to find an alternative plan, whether that's homeschooling or some other supportive service so that that child can still get an education rather than moving into the court process. Those types of cases, when they do get to us, if they get to us, is because the family hasn't been cooperative in taking those services from the school.
Is there a means for, I guess I'll just say government, to find out if a family is moved into the school district, that their children should be in school but they're not for whatever reason? I mean, how do you get reports?
We get reports if a child has moved from one school district to into one of the school districts in Wright County. The schools will often talk to each other. Hopefully that family has made a records request to get their students' school records to move. But there are families that fly under the radar. I know in my child protection work that we've ran into a family that a lot of kids and no one was getting educated and the county did not know about them. So there are some that fly under the radar, but hopefully with school transfers and human services from different counties, being able to communicate with each other, that gives us a lot of heads up if there's a student moving into our district that may be going to have a problem with attendance.
Why don't you each talk about the Truancy Diversion program in each of your counties? Why don't we start with you, Michelle?
Sure. We have a two-step diversion program in Anoka County. So first, there's a legal definition of a continuing truant, and that is when a student has missed 3 or more days, and that's when that first letter from the school will typically go out to the family. They then are required to make a report to our office, and our office has what we call a Truancy Intervention program. We invite those students who have been identified by the school as missing at least 3 days without a lawful excuse to these meetings, and we hold them at all the different schools. Well, not every single one, but 7 of the different schools in Anoka County. And so we have about 7 a month, and typically invite 5 to 10 students to each of those meetings. And it's a presentation that the attorneys in my office rotate doing. We go to the school, the students and their parents are both asked to come, and then we give a presentation on why you're here, why we want you to stay in school, the benefits of staying in school, talk a lot about economic benefits of getting that diploma, and then, should you continue to truant, what's going to happen, and talk about that next step of diversion hearing, and then the next step after that, the court process. So students who either choose to not come to our TIP meeting, Truancy Intervention Program meeting, or a student who does come but then has an additional date of truancy, they get referred to the diversion program. Our TIP program has been fairly successful to students who actually do come, and it varies from each meeting. But about 90% of them don't end up going on to the next phase of the diversion program.
Okay.
But I'd say it's probably half to less than half who come to that first meeting.
Okay.
And the diversion hearing is with a corrections officer from Anoka County. The school is asked to be there, the parents are there, the student is there. If they had some sort of case manager at school who was specific to them, they would be asked to be there too. And they all sit at the table together and talk about why that student's not getting to school, make an action plan for how to get that student to school. And everyone at the table typically leaves with tasks to do. So the school, the parent, the student, to not have this continue. And then if it does continue, then we're looking at court.
Okay. And Kari, is Wright County pretty similar?
We are pretty similar because I think that process is laid out in the statutes, and a lot of
Okay.
counties have adopted it. So we also do the meeting at 3 days unexcused. Ours is a little bit different. Rather than going to the schools, we actually have the students come to the courthouse, and we hold the meeting in one of the courtrooms. And we have up to 25 families invited, and I just do the presentation and talk to them about what is truancy, how you're going to get involved in the truancy program, and a lot of why you don't want to get involved in the truancy program. One of the big messages is a lot of these kids are teenagers, they're all over 12, and they want control. And once you get involved in the court process, you are going to lose control of a lot of things. So we talk a lot about, like, this is your chance to turn it around if you want to keep control. Otherwise, you're going to get deeper into this process, and you're going to start losing that control of where you go to school, what your curfew is, because the court's going to become involved and start setting those things for you. We also do the meeting, once they reach 5 unexcused days, that meeting at the school. We have a human services person go to those. Sometimes for our truants who have exited the program but then are coming back into it, I'll go to some of those meetings. They're not usually happy to see me for a second time, but I do show up at some of those. And then, like Anoka County, we talk about what specific to this student can the school do to help, can human services do to help, and then make sure that everyone understands that the next step would be court. And like their program, we also come up with we call it a contract that we all sign at the end of that meeting. And if it doesn't work and we do end up in court, we also supply that to the judges so the judges can know what we've tried already, and we can build on that to combat the truancy problem.
How old can a child be when they can legally drop out now in the state? Does that change?
17. It was 16. It changed to 17 a couple years ago, and a parent needs to sign for that as well. I'm happy to say that a lot of the parents are very reluctant to sign that.
And it used to be 16, and I think in general people probably still think it's 16. I thought it was till now. And I think a lot of parents, generally the public, thinks you just say, it's my 16th birthday, I'm going to quit school. But there's a lot more to it than that.
Yes, we certainly see students who come to court and say, well, I thought when I turned 16 I didn't have to go to school anymore. So there's still some education to do around that. And once they find out they do, the majority of them re-enroll and attend school until they're 17 at least. So.
Okay. I'm sure there's certainly many factors that cause children not to be coming to school. What is perhaps the most common that you see? Is it mental health issues? Is it financial issues? Family dysfunction?
I mean, I think it varies at the level we're talking about. But once we've gotten into court, I don't know if this is your experience too, but mental health plays a large role, whether it's the mental health of the student, the parents, or both. Earlier on in the process, and kind of the tip and the intervention program, the diversion hearing, I'd say it varies more. But those students and families seem to be able to get a handle on the situation a little bit better and not end up in court maybe. Okay. So we do see a lot of mental health issues.
Okay, Kari, would you agree?
I would say it's true, and I've often said, like, truancy cases are kind of iceberg cases. The truancy is not the main issue that's going on in this family, but it's a symptom of mental health, of chemical use, or of some other situation that's going on at home. So they start as a truancy case, which may not always seem like a big deal, but once we get into them and learn more about these families and the students, there's a lot more going on and a lot more help that they need from the county.
Okay. We're going to take a brief 2-minute break here for some public service announcements, and we will be right back.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you?
You know you do.
Yeah, but I don't know where to start. That's why we're here. We're free, handsome,
I think we're breathtaking.
and here to guide you through every step of the way, starting with attendance. Gary, financial aid forms. Biology homework, G. I got this. Is that Brand? Colleges love extracurricular activities.
Chess really isn't my thing.
I got this. Doesn't matter. Go ahead. Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos.
Fire and ice.
Those don't really go together. Go to GetSchooled.com for more info.
Everywhere that we go, he makes people laugh and makes people smile, and I feel like I have that quality.
He's the one who always takes me fishing.
I watch golf with him, and
I watch him cook, because when I grow up, I want to be a cook too.
We have the same faces like this.
Dad is the one, when you fall, that picks you up.
That unconditional sense of presence and reassurance is really what makes him my father.
Welcome back to the District Court Show. I'm Judge Steve Halsey from Wright County. My co-host is Judge Beth Strand. And our two guests, Kari Willis and Michelle Thompson, are both assistant county attorneys. We're talking about the truancy process. So, Beth.
Michelle, you mentioned that these cases come to court. You did too as well, Kari. So tell us a little bit about the process. How does the county get notified about if a child's not going to school? You talked about the diversion program, but what tips it into the courtroom?
Sure. So either a student who's just gone through the TIP program, the diversion program, and then continues to miss school and gets to that 7 days of unexcused absences, the school will send us a new referral saying this student now has 7 days. If a student has already gone through that diversion program, then the school is just waiting for those to see if 7 days occur and then sends our office the referral at that time. So the diversion program is not offered to students who come back a second time on truancy. So they send a referral to us, and we have a coordinator in our office who accepts all those referrals, checks the history to make sure it's appropriate for diversion versus court, and then we file a petition. It's a child in need of protection or services petition alleging the dates the student has missed without that lawful excuse. And then it is filed with court administration and a court date is set. In Anoka, we kind of have 2 tracks on our truancy cases. We have, I guess, what you call a standard truancy case, and then we have our truancy pilot program. It's in its 3rd year now, I believe, so I'm not quite sure if it's still a pilot. But those cases are specifically for if we have younger students, so middle school students primarily, who this is their second petition to court. And so they're on a special setting, and we require the schools to actually come and participate in those hearings as well. The schools are a party to that proceeding. We always encourage the schools to come to all of our truancy cases if they can. Getting their input and hearing directly from them can be greatly beneficial to the case. But in our truancy pilot program, they're actually required to attend.
And Kari, when a case goes to court, what can the kid and the parent expect to see when they walk into the courtroom? Of course, there's you folks, but what else can they see?
Yeah, also present in the courtroom, I mean, it's just court staff. They're not cases that have a lot of people involved in them. The students can get their own attorneys if they wish, but the court will not appoint one unless the county is recommending some sort of out-of-home recommendation for the judge to consider. So until that's a recommendation from the county, the children are not appointed attorneys. Parents can also bring their own attorneys if they wish, but they would have to pay for that out of their own pocket as well. Present in the courtroom would be myself from the county, and also Wright County has 2 social workers who focus solely on truancy. They're there, and they operate by districts, so that family will be working with that one social worker through their entire truancy case.
So if they come in and they admit that the child is a habitual truant, there's some recommendations from the social worker, correct?
Correct.
And what could those include?
They can include a lot of things. We try to get some background information on these students because the cases can kind of fall into chemical use issues, or if there's mental health issues, or if they're just not wanting to go to school. We try to tailor what the recommendations to the court are based on kind of what issues they have or what combination of issues they have. So it could be urinalysis testing, maybe chemical dependency treatment. Community work service for missed schools gets the attention of a lot of students because they would rather not be spending their time serving on juvenile work crews or donating their time to community work service. We recommend that a lot. Also, we have asked the judges to set curfews. Wright County has a Back on Track program that we ask the judges to consider as well, and that's a program to help the students get caught up over the weekend. So if they're having unexcused time during the week, on Friday they would go to a Back on Track foster home, which would be a specialized foster home that deals with just these situations, and spend their time getting caught back up on work so they can hopefully meet their graduation requirements by the time they're needing to graduate.
Michelle, how creative does your office get in getting to the root of the problem, such as taking away things from the kids? Or what creative recommendations have you made?
I like this Back on Track program. We don't have one of those.
Works good.
I have seen, like Wright County, we definitely, the more information we have about a student, the better able we are to make those recommendations and have orders from the court that are actually going to be beneficial for that particular student. It really does vary. I've seen the judges do very creative things with these truancy cases, and I think that that's something that's been really helpful. To have a judge who really focuses on what that is going to get across to that student and make that order. We see, we talked about mental health, but the other thing I see a lot is just the staying up way too late on the computer, the phone, the social media, and not wanting to get up in the morning. And we've had the judges on a couple of occasions order students to turn their phone over to the court for 2 weeks, and if you go to school every day for those 2 weeks, I'll give you your phone back. And on the students that really is the issue, that certainly gets their attention. We've had judges order community work service, for each hour of school you miss, I'm going to order you an hour of community work service, and then also give the student an opportunity to work them back off then as well. So kind of, what incentive is going to meet that student's needs. So for some, they order 10 and then say, for each hour you go to school, I'll take an hour of or each day you go to school usually, I'll take an hour of community work service off. And I think those kind of creative orders have been really successful.
What drives kids in middle school? What really captures them? What have you noticed a theme? The electronics maybe is one thing in addition to mental health, but control.
How about social things? And I think there's a lot of single parents out there. They might have 1 or 2 children. They may be like 10 and 3 or something like that. And just to survive, the parent has to get up at 6 in the morning. I see the little kids at the elementary school by my house being dropped off at 6 a.m. To daycare. So mom goes to daycare, and the 8th grader has to get up on their own, and they won't get out of bed. And then mom just says, well, you won't go to school. What do you do with that? I mean, how much resources do you devote?
We try to get human services helping out with that for a while. And our social workers will go out and pick students up, actually. And we have a couple principals in a couple of our districts that will go pick students up for school. So it's kind of just going that extra mile to get that student back on track. And then once you get them back, hopefully they're going to be able to keep coming on their own. Sometimes they don't, and you got to go a couple rounds with them. But we do offer those extra services. I mean, there's a couple families that the mom knows or the dad knows that if they're not getting up, that you can call Human Services, and they'll come out to your house that morning and try to rouse your child out of bed and get them going, because sometimes it's just that extra push that they need. The parents, something I hear from the parents so often is they've been fighting this fight with their students for so long. It didn't just start this year, and they're really tired of being the bad guy. So one thing that's what the county tries to do sometimes is be the bad guy.
Do you like judges to be the bad guy?
I do like judges to be the bad guy sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Human Services puts it on me a lot, and that's fine because they need to work with those families. And the judges can get very stern with the students too, and that's very helpful because then they take the process seriously. And one of our judges in Wright County, Judge Tenney, says to a lot of students, he's like, I can't make you go to school, but I can make you wish that you had, and that gets their attention. And it's just kind of a ladder of consequences that some of those students need to hit the top of it before they can turn it around. Other ones, you get their attention a lot quicker.
And I think in some cases, the parents themselves don't understand the gravity of it.
That's
maybe they never finished school. Maybe nobody in their home, ever, in their whole extended family ever finished school. And I remember one case that I had in the last few years. You'll know which one it is. And I just basically said the second time, if these boys don't start going to school, they're going to foster care. And I'm promising you that's going to happen. And everybody's crying, and the boys don't want that, and mom and dad, and to some extent it was successful. But I always wonder, how should I act more like, less like the bad guy than the kind of understanding grandpa to try to get them, get them motivated to go to school rather than,
Yeah, I think they've had a lot of that understanding and a lot of that, and I don't want to call it coddling, but they've had a lot of those gentle pushes from school staff, from their teachers, from the principals, and by the time it reaches court, it's helpful to have a firm hand from the bench supporting what Human Services is asking to do. And those two boys actually did both graduate.
Good to know.
Do parents ever deny the allegations in the petition? And have you had a truancy trial?
So on the truancy, it's the juvenile who is admitting or denying, and I've certainly had truancy trials. Yes.
How?
But they typically
not
are
hard.
very quick. Yes, they're not difficult, and we go from there. Yeah, the student. Sometimes it's in those maybe a chronic illness case though. And the school really has tried to work with them and done everything they can, and they still won't even follow the plan that everyone's made, and you're kind of at the last resort. Those are a little more difficult cases.
A lot more gray.
Yeah, definitely a little more gray. But this standard truancy case is pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, a school person comes in and testifies, there's over 7 unexcused absences, and that's really the bulk of what needs to be proven. So.
And I think it's very impressive when the teacher and the principal come in. And I mean, at the end of the school day, and they could have just gone home, and they're there, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon with this child and the parents, and they're showing them how much they care. I think that's powerful. I've been given the high sign that we're about done here. I want to thank our guests, Kari Willis and Michelle Thompson. Thank you very much. For our viewers, if you have any questions or comments about this program or topics you'd like us to cover, you can send me an email. That will be shown on the credits at the end. So thank you for watching the District Court Show.